It is a new month, so that means a new red light therapy news video. And this month we have a lot to cover. I've just returned from the Biohacking Summit in Amsterdam. I met a bunch of awesome people, discovered some really cool new products in the red light therapy space. So I'm going to cover a lot of that. I have a ton of new products to talk about. The market is just exploding. There's new panels, there's new masks. Some big mainstream companies are getting into the red light therapy space, so we're going to cover all of that. Okay, so let's cover some of these new products. First up, we have a company called Nvoember. I think I'm saying this right. It's a company selling red light therapy for canines, though I'm sure you could use it on any animal or even yourself. I'll put a link to the company below, but what their product is, it's a handheld torch, effectively, emitting both red and near infrared. There's quite a combination of wavelengths there, are rechargeable. So yeah, I mean, you can see why it's useful for pets, but like I said earlier, you could also use it on yourself. Next up, Therabody have now entered the red light therapy space. So this is the company that sells that muscle recovery tool that just pounds your arms or whatever muscle you want to hit. I've never used one, but I probably will soon because their new product, the Theragun Pro, now has red light therapy built into it. Personally, I think that's a great idea. I don't know much about the muscle recovery side of things from the pulsing technology. I don't know what you call it, the massage guns. But the fact that there's red light therapy in there is pretty neat. I mean, if you're trying to use it for recovery, why not get some light into there? Not only that, they've also launched their TheraFace mask. Now, this mask uses red light, near infrared light, blue light, and also vibration therapy. So it's quite feature packed, I guess. And again, it's coming from quite a well-known brand. So all of this is good news for you, the consumer. More products, more options, more competition, prices are going to come down. Hopefully I'll get my hands on one or both of these products and do a review, so be sure to hit subscribe if you want to check them out. Now, BlockBlueLight have just come out with a new version of their red light therapy panel range. I know it was only, a couple of weeks ago, it feels like, when I released my review of their now old panel. So what do you need to know about this new panel? Well, it comes with a new advanced remote. The wavelength spectrum has been changed. There's now more energy going to 810 nanometer light, which I think is great. But the big change is a built-in touchscreen control panel. Previously, we'd only seen this in the Platinum LED Biomax panels. I think it's great that there's another company out there with a touchscreen control panel because personally, it's one of the key selling points behind the Biomax panels. I will be getting my hands on one of these panels and doing an updated review and also a comparison review. And speaking of comparison reviews, I am about to start filming my big end of year comparison series. I need to come up with a better name, but all going well, this new BlockBlueLight panel will be included in that series. Speaking of Platinum LED, their Bio series, not the Biomax, their more budget basic range is known as the Bio series, and they've just refreshed that line to now include blue lights in their product range. I'm not 100% sure if you can switch off the blue lights, but I am going to get one of their Bio 300, I think it is, and I'm going to review that. So if you do want to know the answer to that, of course, you can reach out to Platinum LED or just hang around for my review. Another company to update their red light therapy panel range is HUGA. Now, I've looked at a few HUGA red light therapy panels this year. They had their basic line and then their pro line, but their pro line was still rather basic in the scheme of things. They've just launched their new Ultra line. And I have to admit, on paper, it looks really good. You've got 10 Hertz pulsing, you've got quadruple LED chips, and you now have a wider range of light output. You're getting light in 630, 660, 810, and 850 nanometer wavelengths. I think it's a really, really good move. I know they're sending me one, so I will be testing that. And again, if it arrives in time, I'll include that panel in my comparison series. Infrared have also come out with an LED mask. This mask not only emits red and your near infrared, but you get blue light in there as well. Finally, and this isn't necessarily a new product yet, however, I wouldn't be surprised if we do see it come to market. If you're in my Light Therapy Insiders Facebook group, a gentleman by the name of Benjamin put a rather comprehensive post up on how he built his own red light therapy frame, bracket, stand, if you want to call it that. And I have to admit, it is very, very impressive. Not only does it function well, but it looks really good. So he's built this bracket so you can have panels on one side and on the other, you can change the width. So if you want a big space or you want it nice and tight, plus there's a bracket for overhead use, and then it all folds up and hides into the wall when you're not using it. Very, very impressive. Check out the link. I'll put a direct link to the post. If you're not in my Facebook group yet, be sure to jump in as well. Okay, now for new articles. First up, LightPath LED have an article on red light therapy and athletic performance. It's really good if you are keen on improving your gains in the gym or sports performance. Go check it out. It is something we have covered quite a bit over the years because of my own personal interest to get faster and fitter and stronger. But yeah, here's a really good article. I'll put a link to it below, and I'll also link to all the articles I'm about to mention. Next up, Rouge have an article on red light therapy and ligament health. If that's a problem for you, definitely check this article out. Luminos Red, the company out of Austria, have just published a rather in-depth guide to red light therapy and fertility. Now, Neuronic, the company that sell the Neuroradiant 1070, have just released an article showing how their device can help with cognitive ability. What's cool is this isn't just an article looking at the science and saying, well, our product does this, so it should work. They actually quantify it using a cognitive performance tool known as NeuroCatch. It's worth having a look at, and I think the NeuroCatch tool looks rather interesting and something I may have to try and tap into myself. V-Light have just published a really good article looking at how photobiomodulation red light therapy can help the mitochondria in the brain, which in turn can help prevent against Alzheimer's. They always put out great content, and this is no exception. Speaking of V-Light, I recently interviewed their founder and will be doing a lot more review work on their products, which will be out soon. Finally, we have a video testimonial from someone who was suffering from fibromyalgia. They were using the Nvoember red light therapy bed, and they had some outstanding results. Speaking of fibromyalgia, this month's study looks at a pilot study that had 21 patients suffering from this condition, and they used the Nvoember bed, I think it was for 18 sessions over 3 weeks. Now, the researchers questioned the patient on a bunch of metrics: pain, mobility, depression, fatigue, sleep disturbances, a whole range. What was amazing was that after a couple weeks of use, positive changes were seen across the board, and some of these improvements were quite dramatic, as you can see in the graphs. Even better, positive changes were still reported 24 weeks after the trial began. Remember, they were only using red light therapy for the first few weeks. I do need to note that this was just a small pilot study, but it does show some great promise. So it will be interesting to see if they do a more comprehensive follow-up study. But again, if you suffer from this condition, I highly recommend tapping into the benefits of red light therapy. So this month's question is a question that's been coming through quite a lot in our Facebook group. The question is about how much priority should I put on the non-traditional 660 and 850 nanometer wavelengths. For instance, am I better off getting a platinum LED Biomax that has 80% of the energy going to 660 and 850 and then a little bit going to these alternative other wavelengths? Or should I get a panel that has a lot more power going to these other wavelengths and less going to 660 and 850? It's a good question. As I mentioned, we get asked it a lot. So here's my answer. First up, it's really hard to answer this. Yes, there is scientific evidence showing that 810, 830, 630 nanometer light, for instance, has a lot of benefits, but it's the same with your traditional 660 and 850 nanometers. It's not necessarily that one is better than the other. I guess the bigger question boils down to whether you want to potentially tap into multiple benefits or just focus in on a product that has well-known benefits. Remember, I had amazing results using a Juve Generation 1 panel that just had 660 and 850 nanometer light. I used this for a year or so. It worked really well. Now, of course, we're seeing panels with 3 or 4 or even 5 wavelengths in them. And yes, as you've no doubt seen in Bart's deep dive wavelength cheat sheets, there is a lot of benefit to say 830 and 810, but just because research has shown that 810 is really good for a certain condition, it doesn't mean you're not going to get that same benefit from, say, 850 nanometers. If you look at the Nvoember bed, for instance, this is a $100,000 medical grade red light therapy device. They're only using 850 and 660 nanometer light in that. Again, this doesn't mean that these other wavelengths aren't beneficial. It just means it's a really tricky question to answer when it comes to product recommendations. Personally, I like using panels that do have these other wavelengths in them because I know they're still in that therapeutic optimal range. And if there are some additional benefits that aren't found in the 660 and 850 nanometer peaks, then yeah, I want to tap into it. But at the end of the day, finding the right panel for you, it shouldn't just be about wavelengths, it should be about price, where it ships from, control panel, warranty, how long the company's been in the market, power output, other accessories. There's a lot of factors involved. And if this is all overwhelming, do not worry, because very soon I will be doing my big comparison series that will try and determine which panel or panels are the best when it comes to all of these factors. Okay, so a lot's been happening on the channel and of course at the Light Therapy Insiders website. If you're not on the Light Therapy Insiders email list, go do that. 2 or 3 times a week, we're publishing really good content over there. Some of that content is not on the YouTube channel. Bart is taking a deep dive into various scientific articles. We're doing product reviews and even some sort of candid red light therapy articles as well. So check that out, jump on the email list. But as for this channel, here are a couple of videos that you may have missed in the last few weeks. I published a very popular video on red light therapy for hair loss. I took a deep dive into the science and then shared some anecdotal reports. Check that out if you haven't already. There were 2 massive reviews released in the last few weeks. One of them was the Ironforge Chroma device. This is one of the most powerful devices I've personally ever tested. I mentioned earlier I've been overseas. I actually packed the Ironforge Chroma and the Kineon little portable devices. They were my travel devices. I threw the small Kineon pods in my backpack. I used them on the plane, for instance. I used them around the house. And then a few times a week, I sat down and did a big full body session with the Chroma device. It worked really, really well. And I'm going to do a more comprehensive article on travel devices, so hang around for that in the coming weeks. But if you do want to learn more about the Ironforge Chroma, check that video out. The other big review I did was the HUGA pod. This was the first body mat, so to speak, that I tested. A lot of people have been asking about my thoughts on this mat or these types of mats, so it's finally done. It is also quite a popular video and I think you will enjoy it. Okay, so what's coming up on the channel? Well, I recorded I think 5 or 6 interviews with red light therapy people, experts or founders when I was in Amsterdam, so I'll be rolling them out in the coming weeks. Some of the interviews were short product updates. In other interviews, I sat down and went pretty deep into the science. I also have my before and after hair loss review after using the current body device. And finally, I'm working on this comparison series. I think at this stage there's going to be 16 panels included in this series. I really want to get it started next week, my time, mid-November. However, I'm looking around and I realize I've still got 7 panels that I haven't even unboxed yet. And I need to test all of them before I can do a full comparison. The goal is to get it all filmed in the month of November and then get it edited, and hopefully we can get it out before the end of the year. But anything could happen, it may get pushed back, but I'm gonna do my best to get it out ASAP because I know you've all been waiting for it. Now, while you're waiting, why don't you go back and watch the last version of my comparison series. This was with 12 panels and you can see it by clicking up here.